Does the automatic shifter in your NA or NB Miata have lots of play in it and feel kind of crummy? Well, you probably need new shifter bushings, so let me see if I can show you how to do that. Before you get started, you're going to want to order 4 bushings. 2 of these white ones with that part number there, and these 2 dark green, almost black ones with this part number. Here's some of the tools you're going to want to have for this job. A couple screwdrivers, including a short one here, possibly right angle screwdriver if you got one, and the tool to pop the interior trim clips. There may be more, and if I find we need more tools, I will let you know. You'll have to forgive the mess in here and the fact that I've already started to disassemble the center console, or I should say it's already done. The way you want to do it, it's just a bunch of screws for the most part. You will have to disconnect this switch here for the power windows if you've got it. Some of the trim around here can be a little tricky to remove. Use the plastic trim clip remover tools and plastic pry tools to minimize the risk of breaking stuff. But once you've got stuff to this point, we can move on to the next step. Once you've come this far, next step is to remove the 4 screws holding the kind of shifter assembly down here. So pop those open, we can move to the next step. Next up, we're going to want to remove the 4 10mm bolts that are holding the metal base down here, so remove those. The next tool we need is going to be a stubby 3/8 12mm socket here with something like a 6-inch extension to remove 2 nuts that are on the bottom of the car there, so we can remove the shift linkage and go on to the next step. So I am underneath the car here. Excuse the not so excellent shot here. So this rod, oh, I'm blocking it. Up here, this long metal thing you're seeing is for the automatic shifter to make the changes inside the transmission. Let me see if I can get that. So up here is one of the 12mm nuts you are going to have to remove. Depending on where your car has been living, I highly recommend hitting those 2 nuts with some penetrating oil like PB Blaster or some Seafoam Deep Creep to make sure you don't break anything. So that is the front one. Let me see if I can get a shot of the back one here. Hopefully that's a little easier. It is. So there is the rear nut you were trying to get off. Again, a 12mm, that's the one you're going to need the extension on. So once those things are nice and soaked with the oil, you can go ahead and remove those, and that will free up the shifter linkage here. And this is going to drop, and we are going to be able to start. There are also some some little clips in here, pin clips, retaining clips we're going to have to remove. That's where some of the bushings are. So let's get going. So I've removed the rear nut here. One thing you want to take care to note is the location of where that nut is. Let me see if this thing will focus. You can kind of see a more golden ring circle where the nut was. You want to make sure when you reinstall everything, you reinstall the nut there, because otherwise it will throw off I'm not sure exactly how to describe it. If it's not really the location, but it's going to, I guess, determine the throw of the shifter. So make sure when you tighten stuff up, you put that nut back in the same location on that rectangular metal piece right there. So with both nuts removed, you can remove the shifter linkage from the car. It should look like this. You can get a better view of the shot on the rear where the nut was, where you want to reinstall stuff. And it should also have a lock washer here on the front right here. And I believe there are supposed to be bushings in here, but they're not, they're not there anymore. So let's go back under the car and see what we're left with. So with the shifter linkage removed, you should now be able to pull what's left. This guy here, you should be able to pull that up through the top since everything has been disconnected and is loose. So let's go up there and do that. Next thing I'm going to do is disconnect the electrical connection here in the front. At the very bottom there, let me see if I can point to it. This little tab right there. You're going to want to press up on that with a flathead screwdriver or something to release the clip. Pull those wires you see there out, and that should free things up. So with that electrical connector removed, you can now remove the entire assembly from the car to make replacing the bushings a lot easier. So let's see how we do that. I'm going to start by doing the two lower bushings, which I believe are going to be the white ones right there. They go here and here. You're going to want to pull out these, I'm going to get the word wrong, retaining clip or something like that. I'm just using a screwdriver to kind of pry it and release it. And then let's see what's in there. So I got the front one apart. Wasn't too hard. These three chunks of crap right here are all that was left of the bushing, and it should look like that. So that's definitely going to introduce some slop in the shifter. The clip here that you're trying to remove has a 90-degree bend in it, so you can't just pull it out once you kind of free it up. I think what I'm going to do is bend it straight with some pliers to pull it out, and then bend it back the way it is when I reinstall it. The rear bushing here was in much better shape. Look at all that material I had left in there. Wow. It looks like bacon from up here. Anyways, let's reassemble with the fresh ones and move on. Next up, we're going to remove this rubber boot down here. Take note of the metal sleeves here for the 4 bolts. I appear to have 3 different kinds. So just note their orientation for when you put it back together. I'm not sure how important it is, but might as well do it now. Oh, and to note, probably you can figure it out, but these things, the metal sleeves here, they just slide right out by hand. So go ahead and do that, and then we'll remove the rubber boot. Alright, next up we are going to remove the bolt that goes through here. You're going to need a 14mm wrench for one side and a 12mm socket for the other side. So pop that off and then we'll see what's in there. Alright, so I got the new green bushings pressed in there by hand. Once again, a little slippery stuff helps them go in. I was able to do it without removing that electrical wire right there to keep things simple. So with those pressed in, you can slide the bolt back through, tighten it up, and we can keep going on. With the through bolt back through there, as you can see, I'm going to put a little bit of some blue thread locker Loctite there on the end of that, as you can kind of see that blue stuff going down the threads, just to make sure that that nut never backs off, because that would really suck. So just a little precautionary measure. Probably not necessary, but I'm going to go ahead and do it. As repair manuals are so fond of saying, reassembly is the reverse of disassembly. So, good luck with that. One thing I will note, it looks like I see some evidence of, it looks like red Loctite there, and I'm not sure if that means there is also some on the front bolt coming out of the transmission. I didn't have to use heat to break these things loose, but they were tight. I'm just going to go ahead and use more blue Loctite and hope for the best. So something to think about there as well. Okay, so moment of truth, everything is buttoned up on the bottom. Got everything bolted down up here. Let's see how this thing feels. Oh, I can't get it out of park. What have I done? So I figured out what I did. Took a little while, but the fix is very simple. If you look... Oh man. If you look right in there at the center of the frame, there is a little little piece of metal sticking up in front of here. And that tells the car if you are in park. When I had everything out of the car and disassembled, that little metal thing in front of here had fallen down. It just rotates. And so when it was in the down position, it was no longer making contact with the pins there in front of it. So the car didn't think it was in park. Hence, you couldn't take the key out. So once I simply rotated it back vertical, and it is in front of that circular piece you're seeing there, then I was able to, the car knew it was in park, and I was able to remove the key. So, if you have a similar problem when you do that, check that little gold thing there, and make sure it is in the vertical position, and that should solve your problem. Another way you can verify that that little metal piece is making electrical contact is if you have the key in the ignition in the on position. If the camera will focus on this thing here, in the center of the frame there is a piece of white plastic with a metal rod sticking through it. That should go forward when you press the brake pedal down, like so. That allows you to shift the car out of park. That obviously needs to work, or else, well, you're going to have a bad time. So that's what needs to happen for this whole thing to work as it should. So now, let's do the fun part and actually shift this thing and talk about how nice it feels. There's no side-to-side movement. There's no wiggle in gear. Nothing. I guess it moves around a little bit in park, but when you are in reverse, nothing, neutral, nothing, drive, very, very nice and firm, just the way it should be, and that is job done. Definitely takes some work here, but I would say it's worth it. There's nothing worse than getting in your car. You know, the shifter is one of the first and the last things you touch, and for it to be all floppy and, well, crappy is just no fun for anybody. So for about, I don't know what it was, $30 or $40 worth of parts, and about 2 hours, I would say this is definitely worth doing. So I hope this helped.